I see no chalices.
Here it is. 25.
We have lost control.
Call to order of a special meeting of the Goodyear City Council, 18 June 2007. I'd like to start. Council Member Lord will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance and invocation.
We pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Stay standing, please. Bow our heads. Lord, we thank you for your grace. We place our leadership before you and ask that you would grant us wisdom and integrity in our service to the city. And Lord, as Stephen Cleveland moves into retirement, we thank you, Lord, for his accomplishments and his devotion for serving our city. And Father, we ask for your guiding hand of comfort placed over our troops serving in Iraq and Afghanistan and their families. We ask this in your name. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you. All council members are in attendance. We'll move to ratifying and approving expenditures. We have accounts payable for May 2007. Does anybody have any questions on those?
Mr. Mayor, I looked at the bills that they were presented and find no comment with them. Moved it. They be adopted.
Okay, I have a motion. Second. Motion from Councilmember Souza, second from Councilmember Holland. All those in favor of the motion signify by stating aye, please.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, 7-0. We have no communications at this time. However, we do have cards from citizens who would like to comment. And it's now time for anyone to comment on a subject that is not on this evening's agenda. So if you'd like to address the council on a non-agenda item, now is the time to do that. And we have at least three.
Mayor, there are three.
Okay,
The
would you
first
introduce
gentleman
them?
is Juan Daniel Ramirez.
We would ask, in fact, we ask always, so this is routine, that you limit your comments to 3 minutes, please.
Bueno, mi nombre es Juan Daniel Ramírez. Yo trabajo para una compañía que se llama Great Western Electric. Se dedica a instalar varilla en diferentes proyectos como plantas de agua, estadios, edificios.
My name is Juan Daniel Ramirez, and I am a construction worker. I work for a company called Great Western Erectors. This company is in charge of installing rebar and post tension in different type of projects like buildings, parking lots, stadiums.
El motivo por el que estamos aquí es que sabemos que la ciudad va a tener un proyecto, entonces nosotros queremos pasarle una información que esta compañía tiene problemas con sus trabajadores y está interesada en agarrar todos estos proyectos.
The reason we are here is just we want to share this information with you guys that we're on strike against this company, Great Western Erectors, and we know that the city of Goodyear is going to have a sports facility, the Goodyear Spring Training Stadium, and this company is very interested in this type of projects.
Sabemos que el 50% del proyecto que ustedes van a poner es dinero público, y nosotros lo importante de esto es que no queremos que el dinero público apoye todas estas injusticias.
We know that 50% of this project is going to be, done with tax money, and we just don't want the people's money to support this type of a company.
En esta compañía no hay un respeto hacia nosotros, nos hacen trabajar largas jornadas, no nos dan agua en los sitios de trabajo, nos hacen trabajar hasta 16 horas en un día. Hay veces que en 2 o 3 días completamos 40 horas y nos mandan para la casa y después traen otra gente para no pagarnos un overtime.
Says in this company is committing a lot of injustices towards the workers. Sometimes they make us work long journeys of 14, 16 hours a day without water, and we just think that we don't want the city of Goodyear to support this kind of company.
Es por eso que nosotros hemos estado hablando con ciudades, hemos estado en diferentes ciudades como Phoenix, como Scottsdale, como Tempe, tratándoles de pasar esta información para tener un apoyo de nosotros, y como les dijimos, lo importante de esto es que no queremos que el dinero público apoye todas estas injusticias.
He said that's why we're visiting different cities and and municipalities asking for their support, because we don't want the city to support this type of company once again. Thank you.
Thank you.
Efren Lopez.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. I'm part of the Social Justice Coalition at ASU, and our mission is we come from 5 different campuses dedicated to social change, and we have pledged our support for workers struggling for respect and Great Western erectors. We're here to give full support to these workers who are striving for fair and equal justice in the workplace. These men are fathers and sons of migrant families like some of you or your ancestors have been, but more importantly, they are human beings like you and I. As the workers have stated, they face many workplace issues in addition to facing the Arizona sun, which creates many workplace hazards. So we would like you to consider workers' rights on your agenda during your council meeting sessions. We know that there's a high bid for the construction contract for the new baseball stadium. And just because these men can't type 60 words a minute doesn't mean that we can undervalue the work that they do with their hands. We believe that Goodyear is a wonderful booming city that has the opportunity to set construction standards in Arizona for workers, specifically for men like Juan, David, Martin, Felipe, Miguel, and Marcos and Enrique who are present here today. And I'd just like to end with a quote from Frederick Douglass, which is stated as, "Without a struggle, there is no progress." These men are going through the struggle, and you guys could be the sowing seed for the progress and change. Thank you.
Thank you. Efren, I erred. I was supposed to, and the first gentleman too. Could you give us your name and address, please? That's for the records, and I didn't ask you to do that.
My name is Efrain Zavala Lopez. My address is in northwestern Pennsylvania. That's where I live.
Okay, and the first gentleman, please.
It should be written on the card.
And his address?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
The last speaker is Elizabeth Bush.
Good evening, council members. I'm Elizabeth Bush. I think my address is also on the card. I'm a student from New York. I'm here in Arizona as a union summer intern. We're dedicating our summer to work, to supporting these workers in their struggle because we believe in justice. We believe in workers' rights. We are here because we know it's right. It's from this place that we ask you to consider what these workers are saying. We ask you to really listen to them and think about the conditions they suffer through. We ask you to think about the way they are treated on the work site by Great Western erectors. You have the opportunity here as members of this council to stop the cycle of injustice. By choosing a company that treats its workers like it should, you can create a place where everyone has dignity and respect. So as you make your decisions for this project, we urge you to make the right choice for the workers. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's all.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll now move to consent agenda and ask the city clerk to read consent items A through E by title only, please.
Item A, approve draft minutes of a regular meeting held on May 29, 2007, draft minutes of a work session held on June 4, 2007, and draft minutes of a regular meeting held on June 11, 2007. Item B, award a contract to Kiewit Western Company to design and prepare a guaranteed maximum price proposal for the construction of approximately 2 miles of 15-inch and 18-inch gravity sewer main in Citrus Road from McDowell Road to Indian School Road in the amount of $241,729 and authorize the city manager to execute all relevant documents. Also, to authorize the city manager to execute a not-to-exceed construction contract of $3 million with Kiewit Western Company to construct the sewer line upon satisfactory completion of the design phase of this project. Item C, adopt Resolution 07-1156, supporting the town of Buckeye's east-west alternative routing for the proposed Transwestern Pipeline Phoenix Expansion Project through the Buckeye Municipal Planning Area, requesting a favorable finding for the east-west alternative route by the Commissioners of the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, and supporting Buckeye in its efforts to contact local utility companies and ask for their support of the east-west alternative. Item D, adopt Resolution 07-1157 to implement measures in the MAG 2007 5% plan for PM10 for the Maricopa County non-attainment area. Item E, approve a development reimbursement agreement between the City of Goodyear and Newland Communities to improve utility system reliability and capacity in the southern planning area for projects funded by Newland Communities, and authorize the city manager to execute all relevant documents.
Okay, thank you. Would anyone in the public wish to remove an item from the consent agenda? Would anyone on the council wish to remove an item from the consent agenda? Okay, seeing none, could I have a motion, please?
I move that we accept the consent agenda as read by the clerk.
Second.
Motion from Councilmember Holland and a second from Councilmember Cavalier. Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Sousa.
Aye.
Councilmember Cavalier.
Aye.
Councilmember Holland.
Aye.
Councilmember Lord.
Aye.
Councilmember Osborne.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Antoniak.
Aye.
Mayor Kavanaugh.
Aye.
Passes 7-0.
Okay, we'll now move to our business agenda and start with considering adoption of a resolution for the award of bids for GO bonds, and Larry Lang will present.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Mayor, City Council. Several objectives for this discussion. The primary objective in the resolution number 07-1158 is to award the bids in the general obligation bonds. I want to first inform you that we were notified Friday from Moody's that they have upgraded our bond rating from A2 to A1 for this bond issue, and Standard & Poor's notified us that there is no change in our bond rating from them. That is good news in those cases. The bonds, as they were presented or out for bid, are for a 20-year period of time. 10 bids were received, and they were received at 10 o'clock today. Scott Ruby from Gust Rosenfeld brought revised resolution out that includes those bids. And Larry Given from Peacock, Hislop, Staley, and Given has brought out the successful bids. The successful bid, I will let me try to focus. There were 10 bidders on this, and the successful or the lowest bid was LaSalle Financial Services, Inc., and the effective interest rate on that was 4.539011. If you'll notice on that how close all 10 of those are, that really is quite phenomenal. But they are the successful bidder, and this has been reflected in the ordinance as is now presented to you this evening. The other item that we allowed for on the discussion, and we can vote on the resolution first or have this discussion, Vice Mayor Antoniak asked in our work sessions to have a dialogue on the next voter authorization and what timetable should be considered in that, and I'm happy to do a brief presentation on that. Do you want me to go through that first, or would you rather go on the resolution first?
I'd like to, let's do that first.
Okay. Arizona state law has specific guidelines as to, and they have changed since the last time, I think since the last time Goodyear went to a bond election, but definitely from some of the earlier bond elections. The only time bond election, general obligation bond elections can be held for municipalities is in November of each year. That's to keep a steady time frame of when those elections take place. So the time schedule that I attached to your COAC would be if we wanted to have an election this November, what would that time schedule be? And that means we'd have to go very quickly. We'd have to bring something back to you at the next meeting, and I don't think that would be very prudent for a couple of reasons. Historically, we've used a citizen committee as a means of feeling out what interest there is in projects and getting their input in this process, and they've often made the recommendations both to you as a city council and to individually. They often make them to the voters. And I think you would probably want to form the committee also. The second is just the pure timing of it, and I don't know that we need to discuss it too much, but the assessed valuations for property in Maricopa County have increased significantly in the 2007 year. And so about November of 2007, people will be getting their first property tax bills, and quite frankly, I don't think any of us know exactly what those are going to look like until everyone has adopted their tax levies. And so those could be some significant increases in property tax levies at that point in time, or it may not be. I honestly don't know. The city of Goodyear's property taxes make up somewhere between 10 and 15% of the total property tax bill that each property owner has in Goodyear, depending on where you live. And so while we may not be the cause of the large change in property taxes, we may be the recipients of negative votes should those increase significantly. And so that would lend us to looking out a year or two before we'd have such an election. But I think that would also lend us to time to set up a formation committee and study all the issues involved with it. The other thing that I have attached here is an updated voter authorization of what the voters have already approved and what the status is. I think some of the issues that are out there, public safety and streets and highway, those limitations were just increased from the 6% limitation to the 20% limitation by the voters. And I think with those low dollars out there and the high costs of those infrastructure items, those are things to look at. Also mentioned was the public buildings as we're going forward, where there has been $45 million approved. Is that sufficient? And I think that's something that a committee could be asked in light of other funds and so forth. But that's some background information I wanted to give you on this issue, and ask for any direction you would like to give us.
Okay, try to handle both these at one time. What any comments from the public on the resolution or the last discussion? Okay, seeing none, can I ask the clerk to read the resolution by title only, please?
Adopt Resolution 07-1158, providing for the issuance and sale. Oh, my eyes are so dry. My apologies.
Adopt Resolution 07-1158, providing for the issuance and sale of $36,750,000 aggregate principal amount of general obligation bond series 2007, providing for the annual levy of a tax for the payment of the bonds, accepting a proposal for the purchase of the bonds, approving the form and authorizing the execution of an agreement for the services of a bond registrar, transfer agent, and paying agent, approving the distribution of an official statement in connection with the issuance and sale of the bonds herein authorized, ratifying the actions of city officers and agents concerning the bonds and the distribution of a preliminary official statement pertaining to the bonds, providing certain terms, covenants, and provisions regarding the bonds, and declaring an emergency.
Okay, thank you. Could I have a motion on the resolution?
I move we adopt Resolution 07-1158 as read by the city clerk.
Second.
Motion from Councilmember Lord and a second from Vice Mayor Antoniak. It's now open for discussion, and that includes the latter subject that Larry covered. So,
Well, I think Larry covered it quite well. I don't think politically it's the time to do it. I think that Citizens Committee means a great deal. And we've always relied on good feedback from our citizens. And I think, in my view, we should continue with the same process we've always used.
Yeah, don't get me wrong, I wasn't necessarily advocating to
Oh,
usurp the citizen process. I got anxious when I saw we only had 10 million in public safety and 3.2 million in transportation, yet we have a large amount of capacity to go there. Larry, again, your recommendation would be to be in front of the voters November of '08?
I don't think sooner than November of '08 is practical. I think that to form a committee now to give them time to work and bring recommendations to you would be appropriate at this time, to give them time to look at the CIP and the projects. Then let them make a recommendation to you as to whether November of '08 would be practical or some other time.
So you'd be initiating that process, you'd advocate to initiate that third, fourth quarter of this year, so that we have ample time to come back to us prior to August of, prior to summer break?
Prior to summer break of 2008, that's absolutely correct.
I'd like to see us do that for sure.
I agree.
Further comments on that one? Sounds like there's agreement that we'll move towards forming a committee. Any comments on the resolution, discussion? No. Okay, roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Cavalier.
Aye.
Councilmember Holland. Aye. Councilmember Lord.
Aye.
Councilmember Osborne.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Antoniak.
Aye.
Councilmember Sousa.
Aye.
Mayor Kavanaugh.
Aye.
Passes 7-0.
Thank you.
Thanks. We'll now have a public hearing to consider a proposed retail development tax incentive agreement with Rose Properties, and I'll open the public hearing and the staff presentation by Brian Belkey.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, staff report this evening will be brief. We will be talking about the process that we had to go through to file to stay within state statute. But on May 29th, as I know you recall, we had several agreements that came before council related to the spring training complex. And council passed several agreements. That included infrastructure agreement, land conveyance, the use agreement with the Cleveland Indians, as well as a development agreement with Rose Properties. One of the things that council also passed that evening was a notice of intent to enter into a sales tax reimbursement agreement with Rose Properties. Stepping back just a little bit into history, it was actually on September 27th of last year where we established and council adopted a memo of understanding that had bundled benefits, or all the benefits that we were putting together to really make this ballpark project work in the stadium and surroundings. So with that, it set the tone for what the intent was. On May 29th, we ended up, council approved all the agreements that we asked, but we did have one more important agreement that we had to bring back before council. And that is for council to do a couple of items. First is to adopt the findings by a third party that was conducted on this sales tax reimbursement agreement. And I'll go through a couple of the points on that. These were some of the findings that were done by our third party, and that was Ms. Sarah Murley, who's with us tonight with Applied Economics. And she will be here to answer any questions that council may have. But the findings principally were these things: that the reimbursement agreement, 50% of sales tax up to $5 million will in fact be given to Rose Properties or their assignees over the term of the development agreement. The other findings, the land conveyance, it was valued at about $18.75 million in land value for 75 acres. City's portion of that was a little over $6 million, so the net contribution by the developer was $12.5 million. The infrastructure, the city's requirement, and keep in mind that 75 of those acres are now our property, or will be in a couple of days, that $10 million of the infrastructure is a requirement of the city. About $9 million will be funded by Rose Properties to make all the public infrastructure work for this entire project area. And the last part of the bundled agreements as it related to the findings were the project enhancements. And that's $5 million that will be funded by the developer for what we call enhancements directly benefiting the ballpark. could be hardscape, pavers or fountains or landscaping or enhancements to the building, but there will be $5 million invested by the developer. So those were the main points in the findings by the third party, and state statute requires that we go through a process. That includes this public hearing that we're having right now, but as the process, we had to do a notice of intent again that was done on May 29th. We had a minimum of 14 days for there to be comments to us, and then an opportunity for the public to actually voice their comments tonight. So this is that part of that. The requirements are that the project will generate more money that we reimburse, and we've proven that. The findings are verified by an independent third party. Again, Applied Economics, that has done many of these over the past several years, did this work for us. And it's very important that this was funded by the city. We, in fact, funded this entire study. No money came from Rose Properties for this third-party independent review. And lastly, state statute requires that this type of development would not occur in the same time, manner, or place if it was not for this sales tax reimbursement. And we absolutely feel that to be true because of the nature of this partnership approach that we're working on this project. So, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, that would conclude my comments as it relates to this particular item.
Okay, any comments from the public? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing, and I'll ask the Vice Mayor if he would make the motion, please.
Yeah, I move that City Council make the, pardon me. I apologize here. I'm reading this. I have to read all five.
Yeah, no, start like you
okay.
were. That was good.
I move Mayor and Council make the following express findings as required by ARS 9-500.11 pertaining to the proposed retail development tax incentive agreement with Rose Properties, LLC, Rose. A notice of intent to enter into a retail development tax incentive agreement with Rose Properties Southwest, LLC was adopted by City Council on May 29, 2007, and the tax incentive to Rose contemplated by the agreement is contemplated to raise more revenue than the amount of the incentive during the duration of the agreement, and that such finding has been verified by an independent third party, and that Rose did not finance such independent third party verification or have input into the selection of the independent third party verifying the figures, and that in the absence of tax incentive, the retail business facilities or similar retail business facilities Rose contemplates developing within the Ballpark Village would not locate within the city in the same time, place, or manner as contemplated by Rose. So moved.
Second motion.
I have a motion from Vice Mayor Antoniak and a second from Councilmember Souza. The motion is up for discussion. Seeing none, do I need a roll call vote? I don't think so.
Yes.
Okay. I'm sorry. I didn't see that either. Yeah, it is. No.
No, it's not.
No, it is not a
Sarah
resolution.
is shaking her head, yes.
The finding.
The roll call vote.
Okay, roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Holland.
Aye.
Councilmember Lord.
Aye.
Councilmember Osborne.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Antoniak.
Aye.
Councilmember Sousa.
Aye.
Councilmember Cavalier.
Aye.
Mayor Kavanaugh.
Aye.
Passes 7-0.
Okay, thank you. We'll now move to consider adoption of a resolution, an amendment to the development agreement with Rose. Brian Dalkey.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, this is I don't want to say the last remaining item, but the last big item that we need to do to keep the project moving forward. And this is a first amendment. We don't anticipate a lot of amendments, at least in the short term, to this particular agreement. The amended development agreement has three provisions. The first one is to actually put into the agreement what council just what was just introduced to council as far as adopting the findings. And now we're going to put it in the development agreement saying that we will do this, in fact, $5 million sales tax reimbursement. The second provision has to do with PowerPoint once again. The other 2 points had to do with the well. And we worked very closely with the Wood family, certainly with Rose Properties and the council, to come up with what we thought was very fair as far as acquiring the well. So the other two provisions to this First Amendment include the acquisition of the well for $30,000. This is Well N. It's a major producer for us. It's just north of just north of Goodyear Boulevard on Estrella Parkway. And this amount actually was provided to us as fair market value by our water resources staff. So I thank both Sean Bradford and Dave Olonsky for coming up with this amount that was agreeable to by the Rose Properties and the Wood family. Second part of that is distinguish the credits that come with that at $25 an acre foot. Again, fair market value, and we're estimating that in credits that could be anywhere from $17,000 to $40,000. I don't want to do sticker shock on that one. But this is actually turned in through credits. So water resource fees, when those come through, when development comes through, they actually get a credit against that. So it's not a cash outlay by the city. But the other important and very important part of this agreement and this amendment is to make sure that council understands that this was actually tied to the land conveyance agreement. So the 75 acres that we received from Rose Properties and the Wood family is actually tied to this particular amendment that we're bringing for you tonight. Mr. Mayor, members of the council, that concludes my remarks.
Okay, thank you. Are there any comments from the public? Okay, seeing none, ask the clerk to read the resolution by title only, please.
Adopt Resolution 07-1159, approving First Amendment to Ballpark Village Wood Corporate Campus Development Agreement dated May 29, 2007, providing a sales tax reimbursement up to $5 million, providing for compensation for the conveyance of water rights, and providing compensation for a municipal well.
Okay, could I have a motion to approve the resolution?
I move we adopt Resolution 07-1159 as read by the city clerk.
Second.
Motion from Councilmember Lord and a second from Councilmember Cavalier. Discussion? Could I have a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Lord?
Aye.
Councilmember Osborne?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Antonia?
Aye.
Councilmember Sousa?
Aye. Aye.
Councilmember Cavalier?
Aye.
Councilmember Holland?
Aye.
Mayor Kavanaugh?
Aye.
Passes 7-0.
Okay, thank you very much. Well, now, upon roll call vote, we may convene an executive session for the purposes of considering the city manager's retirement, his employment agreement, and appointing an interim city manager. Could I have a motion to go into executive session?
So moved.
Second.
A motion from Councilmember Cavalier and a second from Councilmember Holland. All those in favor of the motion signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it 7-0. We'll go into executive session.